Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our webinar on how to unlock project planning and feasibility with the intuitive Autodesk Forma. A couple quick reminders before we start. This webinar will be recorded and emailed out to you within a few days. It will also be available in our video library on the Symmetry website and on our YouTube channels. We will have a Q&A session at the end. If you have any questions during our presentation, please type them into the questions box located near the bottom of the go-to panel for the end. A little bit about Symmetry. We create and provide technology solutions and services for design, engineering, construction, and manufacturing businesses. We empower people to work smarter for a better future by ensuring that they have access to the expertise and technology they need to improve their performance and sustainability. In 2022, we were acquired from Symmetry and Adnode Group, and even more exciting, just last month in June, we changed our name and brand from Microdesk to Symmetry. That allows us to reinforce our commitment and efficiency. Symmetry is also Autodesk's largest solutions partner globally, and proud of it. Being an Autodesk partner is in our DNA at Symmetry. Our long experience of working with Autodesk customers has given us the insight into the needs and requirements, leading to the development of some of our own Symmetry technology add-ons. But now let's get to the fun part and why we're here today. I would like to present our speaker, who will kick off our agenda.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeffrey Tiers. I am a Senior Solution Specialist at Microdesk. Today we're going to be talking about Autodesk Forma, a pretty new tool under the Autodesk umbrella that I see it as a transformative product that can make and establish some new workflows within your design process. So first we're going to go through a quick introduction about me, a little bit about Symmetry and our co-innovation practice, and then we are going to speak about why Forma, why Forma is a product to be reckoned with at this point. Next, we'll move into Forma for Design. We have a couple of short videos that will establish a better understanding of how to start a project, how to utilize the data that is available to you, and then start to build up your concepts based on real world information. Next, we'll look at Forma for Analysis. There's a couple of different types of analysis features within Forma that can help to optimize your building as you design, which is huge. A large time savings comparison in comparison to previous workflows. One of the big deals, lastly, is interoperability. Forma being based on the cloud and having a pretty open-ended import process will allow for some really great opportunities in working downstream and returning back into Forma. And then lastly, we'll take some questions, and I also will have Forma open just in case we have some time and you have some more specific questions. All right, again, my name is Jeffrey Tiers. I'm a solution specialist here in Houston, Texas, born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. I hurl a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Architecture from the Savannah College of Art and Design. I'm a member of our co-innovation practice that focuses on research and development and workflows for sustainability and general AECO technology. Some of my main focuses are centered around architectural design, of course, but computational design, sustainability and net zero, architectural visualization, and then some GIS and mapping. I'm an Autodesk certified REVIT professional, and I've spoken at Autodesk University twice in the past, and we'll be speaking this year on Rhino and REVIT data exchanges. Just a little quote, some of my favorite quotes: creativity, humanity, and a touch of intuition will be required to obtain an equitable and sustainable future for everyone. And my motto in life is inspired to be inspired. So continuing on, at Symmetry, our mission is to drive sustainability in the AEC industry with technology and expert consulting. We make a positive impact on the market through focus on decarbonization. Our technology solutions and competence help customers reduce their environmental impact and meet sustainability goals. We leverage our expertise and capabilities to work towards a more sustainable future. While we're talking about that today, Forma is essentially a building optimization tool. on top of a modeling tool, on top of an analysis tool. So Forma fits right into our goals in sustainability, and we'll dive right into that. All right, so why Forma? Forma is intuitive, it's data rich, it's time saving, and it's collaborative. Intuitive, it's easy to use and quick to learn. The transformed user experience. If you have done any type of building design or master planning, feasibility, or anything in the building industry, it's complex and it requires a lot of expertise in many different softwares. It is not an intuitive process by all means. All right, with Forma, some of that threshold is lowered. Really clean user interface, lots of amazing tools to work from. And again, speaking towards those tools, automations and analysis straight out the box. Many of the things that that are available to us in Autodesk Forma are things that we would have to export and coordinate with industry experts who know how to do solar analysis, who are keeping track of spatial analysis as we design these buildings, so on and so forth. So a lot of these tools and workflows are automated through Forma itself. Now, cloud native capabilities, this is something that makes the software what it is. It's connected to the Autodesk Construction Cloud and utilizes Autodesk cloud computational capabilities in order to be able to essentially run fileless, have fileless storage, have immediate REVIT syncing, and collaboration throughout industry-wide technologies. All right, on its surface, Autodesk Forma is these 5 major components: contextual modeling and data, conceptual design, automations, analysis, and interoperability. Each one of these things, again, just to get off the ground in order to do a conceptual design or a feasibility study for a developer, so on and so forth, it would take a lot. And for the most part, just getting contextual modeling and the conceptual design out it breaks the budget in the first place. A lot of these projects typically go over budget because we can't charge that much. So the hope for Autodesk Forma is that by packaging all this together and creating a interface that's easy to use and understand, the hope is that it will allow designers to be able to focus on some of the more important things in our world, such as climate change and decarbonization. All right, so speaking on that intuitive, easy to use, and quick to learn, Autodesk Forma, formerly Spacemaker, Norwegian tool bought by Autodesk about 2 years ago, acquired in 2022, is being used as essentially a base for analysis and modeling. Now, the interesting part is once Autodesk took it over, is began to integrate some of the modeling tools from Autodesk Forma. If you're not familiar with Autodesk Forma is similar to like a SketchUp. It is a Google SketchUp. It allows for easy surface modeling, quick modifications. It also has something called Insight in it, Autodesk Insight, where we can run baseline energy use analysis on general massings to get an idea of how this building might perform in the future. And I just mentioned it, Autodesk Insight. So these 3 tools have come together to form what is known as Autodesk Forma. All right, so the typical feasibility / conceptual design process. We all know this is a typical jumbled mess, even for the smallest design. You have to call your civil engineer to get a site plan or a site model. It may or may not be in 3D. They might use Civil 3D or InfraWorks to do so. We have to model in a certain way using, Rhinoceros or SketchUp or Revit or Dynamo, depending on what the design team is most comfortable with. From that, we have to render it. From that, we have to calculate data. We have to understand codes and regulation, understand the spaces. There's so much that goes into the feasibility and conceptual design process that most of the time and effort and money goes into general setup. Forma hopes to alleviate that. All right, so we're gonna jump into it. Forma for design. We're just going to go over some of the features and some of the features and benefits, and quickly just kind of start a project for you guys. All right, project kickoff in minutes, not days. As I mentioned, feasibility studies, just getting a site model out is one of the hardest things, especially even with context, and you can't guarantee that it's going to be correct. All right, so I'm gonna pause it here real fast. This is the general dashboard for Forma. Now I'm in a public demos folder because I do have some client work, can't show that. But I am, you have access to multiple project folders, and we can start a project from this dashboard immediately. It's very simple, very clean, very elegant. From this, we can also add project members. There's different tiers of project members. There is admins, such as your BIM managers or a project manager. You have your editors, such as your design team or any collaborators you might invite into your hub. And then you can have viewers. So you can actually send this out to your developer or whoever the client is to view as you're designing, and elaborate and give feedback on any of the proposals that have been established. All right. So we're just going to start a project. It's really fast, really quick, really simple. Go in, you're going to choose a country in the entire world, and this will set up the focus. We can set up whatever folder we want that project to go in, and we can start to name it. Now, below the name, you do see the standard versus classic. You can ignore that for now. That will be going away in October. That just meant you could actually start your project in Spacemaker versus Forma. Again, this is going away in October, so ignore it. And then we can also make this invite only, so that only specified people can, or specified collaborators can view or modify a project. All right, immediately we have what's known as a Mapbox map. Essentially, it's ran off of OpenStreetMaps, and we can, just like Google or anything else, we can search our location. So I'm gonna go back to my hometown, Nashville. Skyline inspired me to get into the design world. As you can see, as we zoom in and out, we do have a limit of space that we're allowed to grab. That's 1.5 miles, respectively. All right. And if you see on the right, we have a data source, and that is coming from the United States Geological Survey. So this is a real terrain model with about 1 meter of accuracy. I'm gonna click create, and immediately we are brought, well, not immediately, there is a slight load time, maybe about 5 minutes. But as soon as the software has run its course, we're brought up to this order data screen before we even go to the model itself. Right now, we do have a terrain model in the background, but we need to add some more information, all that context that we were talking about. What you see here is essentially collaborations with other software and open source entities. So first and foremost, there's ReGrid. ReGrid is a platform that contains United States parcel data. So we're able to pull property lines, actual property lines for our site model to work with. So again, we don't have to call our civil engineer at this point to give us something that might or might not be accurate to our actual 3D model, right? It's already there, it's vetted. Next is Open City Model. Open City Model is, again, mainly for the United States, or it is only the United States. It is open source. It's run by a company in which has approximate building heights that are relatively accurate and footprints. So we can actually get true to life, somewhat true to life looking skylines in our models. Now keep in mind, this data is specific to the region or location in which you choose at the beginning of the project. So if I'm choosing something in Canada, they're obviously not going to be the USGS or Open City model for my building models. It might come from another source. Lastly, we have OpenStreetMaps. OpenStreetMaps provides us with building models, but unfortunately, they are limited to only 3 meters high. So if you're doing an urban area, this probably wouldn't be useful because you do need, the actual heights of an area. But say your site is spread out and you're not worried about the contextual heights around you, fine, you could use that at least for the footprints. We can use that for roads as well. And then we cover terrain. We can use the provided terrain, or there is a flat terrain. I don't know why anyone would ever use that though. All right, so moving along, we'll let him play its course. We're gonna start out with ReGrid. Just go ahead and get those property values or property lines. Now, ReGrid does require payment. Right now, it is free and promotional since, Forma is taking off, but at some point, the area in which you select with this little constraint tool will calculate a certain fee. Now, the larger the site, the larger the fee. And I think before, when it was changing, they could creep up to a couple $100, but for the time it saves, definitely worth it. So I'm just going to pick out a little area here. And again, you can form it in any way you would like. All right, we'll let that load. And then next, we're going to go to the OpenCity model. OpenCity model, we can expand this since it is open source. It is free, so we have the ability to go ahead and expand that all the way out and grab as much data as possible. So we're going to grab part of the natural skyline for effect. Click OK. All right, that's going to take a minute to load. So in the meantime, looks like our property values are done. So we can click into that. And now this is the same for any type of data that you load in. You have the ability to be selective and select one, or you can window select and select them all and add them to your project. Now this is important because now we're skipping a lot of steps. We're not having to draw property lines, try and figure them out from an import of some sorts or what have you. So next, while buildings are still loading, no, we're going to do roads. So again, it saves our boundaries and we can click OK once it loads. And this will be, like I said, the roads from OpenStreetMap. These are only lines. They actually come in pretty quickly. All right. And again, we have the ability to be selective or window select and add them all to your project. Now, what's important about roads is for the beta noise analysis, we can actually add traffic information to that. Time of day that the traffic or percentage of day the traffic is high, so on and so forth. Here is the import. We do have the ability to import other items such as OBJs, IFC, as well as images and DXFs for like property lines, 2D vectors. All right, so our buildings are done. Again, it's as easy as selecting everything and adding it to your project. And you're done. That's a full-on BIM model created and ready to go. All right, so moving along, just a quick review. Some of our data sources, OpenStreetMaps. Again, OpenStreetMaps is a widely used source, data source for many reputable companies and governments, actually. You probably, if you've hopped in an Uber or if you've ordered Uber Eats today, then you've interacted with OpenStreetMaps. All right, OpenCity model, again, open source, allows for allows for us to download 3D geometries for the United States. Regrid allows us to grab property line information. Next step of the process, let's apply some real world constraints. All right, so immediately out the gate, we have our base model, our existing conditions model. If we wanted to, we could export this out to Revit or any other program for use or for further use, or we can start designing here, creating a new proposal. So we just duplicate that proposal, and I do base building first to set up some of my constraints, or to, if I'm not quite sure which site I want to use or I want to pick, then I'll go through this process. So we're going to select the site here. Look, we already have the property lines. We have a couple of tools for constraints. We have site limit, which is essentially the property limit. We have zones, so areas within that site, and we have constraints. Those constraints are essentially building heights or setbacks if you decide to choose to do those. You can actually freeform draw. You can create rectangles, squares, or you can simply trace. And when we trace that, you'll get this red marker. Now Forma knows that this is our property that we want to analyze. All right, immediately out the gate. Skip ahead a little bit. So next we're going to look at zones. Whoops, sorry about that. We'll let that All right, my bad, little technical difficulties. All right, we'll let that play. And so the next thing we will do is look at the zones. So zones will allow us to actually segment the site in a way that that creates a analysis that we can actually pick and choose from these different areas and program. So early design, we might create a zone that is purely buildable space, right? So I'm just going to use the rectangle tool. All right, and we'll create that buildable space. And so that's where one of our buildings will go. Maybe this is the residential zone or something. All right, next we'll create another zone. We'll use the drawing tool this time. And with that, what we will do is we'll do a little something interesting, all right? So this will be like an outdoor area or outdoor venue of sorts. Next, we'll do, say, a public zone. Maybe there's more retail or something in this area. All right, we got our zones. We have the ability to name those zones. Again, here's the garden area. And then we can name that one public. And so when we get into the analyses, we can actually decide to only analyze one area or the other. All right, next is constraints. We're just going to pick these. And so the constraint itself, we can set that building height. So maybe there's a code or regulation in the area that says we can only go up to 150 feet. Now, when we start creating building geometry, what it will do is give us a warning and say, you know, you're outside of the allowable constraints. All right, and we'll do one more. You can have multiple constraints on a site. So again, maybe retail is only allowed to have 65. All right, so quickly and easily, we're already starting to see a little bit of architectural detail start to happen in setting up those constraints, those site constraints, understanding what we can and can't do. Next up is roads. So say we had a larger site, we could actually create roads on this site. You know, maybe it's a larger master plan. Or, you know, we can create roads that connect into the site itself. Now, roads, again, are the same type of roads that we were mentioning earlier that do have traffic data that we can apply that would add to our sound metrics. Next, we can set up any trees that might already be on site or we might be wanting to add to our site. We have two types of trees that we can add. We can add trees on a line, and these are parametric. So you'll see here in a second, once they are placed, we'll see some pop up there. All right, now we can control the spacing and the height of these right at the gate. And again, these are 3D geometry. These are pieces of 3D geometry that will respond to the analyses. So any of the wind or any of the solar analyses, all of those these will affect that. So keep that in mind when you're doing shade and shadow studies or sun studies or looking at comfort. Again, we can set the offset, alignment and offset of the tree line as well. Next, we have our tree by area, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a randomized tree area. You can do your pick lines or you can freeform draw. We're going to freeform draw to leave that little back area out, and we'll create a little park setting. And again, the spacing and heights of these trees are parametric as well. All right, so again, quick overview. Just straight out the gate, 6 tools. I was able to create somewhat semblance of a site for us to start to build upon. It's that easy. All right, rapid planning and design. Now we're going to start getting into some more fun stuff. All right, so we have our site set up, we have our strengths, we got the gestural idea of what we want this at least proposal to look like. We have a couple of tools. We have generic 3D objects. These can be extrusions, lines, or surfaces. They don't count for anything. They don't really do anything. So not as important, but it is a tool that is useful. Here we're looking at the 3D sketch. The 3D sketch allows us essentially to bring Autodesk Forma into Autodesk Forma. Autodesk Forma, if you're not familiar with it, again, is a surface modeling tool. So it's quick and easy to pick surfaces, lines, vertices, edges, and manipulate geometry a little bit more effectively than things like a Rhino or AutoCAD 3D or anything of that sort. So you do have tools such as extrude face, you have lofts, sweeps, all the necessary tools that you could create a pretty nice 3D object in space. Now keep in mind, this is meant for the early conceptual design modeling workflow, the massing stage of sorts. So understand that no area metrics, no area analysis happens to your model, to your 3D sketches. They are just an object in space to be further designed and worked out. But again, really quick and easy to make some really nice gestural elements on the site. And again, these models do actually respond to the solar analysis, the wind analysis, and so forth. As you can see, pretty easy to use and start to manipulate and create something interesting with Forma/Format. So this is the exact same, almost the exact same workflow that you would be working through inside of Autodesk Format. All right, so we do have some other tools down there. We have Boolean tools, as well as I said, lofts and sweeps. We also have some primitives. So, if you just want to jumpstart something and add to something that you've already modeled, again, being a surface modeler, it makes it quick and easy to just drag and push and pull, essentially, to create new, interesting geometry. Move this edge, maybe it's some type of floating catwalk or something. I don't know. All right, next is the buildings. So these are much more powerful and have a little bit more information, and these actually respond to area analytics. So if I actually place one of these on the ground, you'll notice on the right-hand side of your panel that areas will start to, actual square footages will start to pop up. So very powerful tool. Now there's two types of tools. There's the line building and then the basic building. Line buildings, think of it like a single function, almost like an apartment block or something like that. And so line buildings are exactly what they are. You draw a line. Now with that being said, they are parametric. So once you finish drawing that line, what you'll see is we can change the depth of the actual building. We can change the amount of stories of the building. We can change the floor-to-floor height and the individual sections width. In addition to that, we have the ability to change the functions and quickly add functions. So if we need to change or add, retail or affordable housing or what have you, we can. We have that ability really quick and really simple. Now, again, with the line buildings, they do, unfortunately are single function, but you can convert line buildings into a basic building into their individual blocks and then continue to manipulate those. We also have the ability to add a corridor, either front loaded, back loaded, or centrally located. All right, and those are parametric. Along, we're gonna do a basic building. Basic buildings are basically simple extrusions, and instead of one cohesive object or set of objects, it is cohesive, but you have the ability to actually manipulate individual layers at a time. So what we're going to do is go through this process and create a little bit taller of a tower, maybe a little more interesting floor plan, and extrude that up. And we'll show you how manipulating and coming to some generally interesting can happen in literally minutes. All right, so as you can see, if we can use our tab functions in order to actually select individual layers. All right, We can change the actual height or the actual number of stories. We can also go in and, as I said, select individual layers, and we can actually manipulate the footprint of those layers. Again, creating something a little bit more interesting. And keep in mind, as you're doing this, keep an eye on the area metrics that are continuing to calculate as you make modeling decisions. All right, and then you also get a little view of the floor plan. Each one of these layers can then be individually changed of height. So maybe this is a public area and I want it to be grandiose of some sorts. It's going to get a beautiful view of downtown Nashville. All right, again, we can quickly jump in and change the program or add a new program. We have the ability to change the efficiency factor used in leasing. All right, and then we can start to segment the building a little bit more effectively. So top, more than likely is going to be residential. Then again, we can go ahead and select individual zones in order to change up their program. Another useful tool that we're going to cover real fast is the parking metric. So this is the ability to change one of those layers into a parking area. And you can, it is a parametric parking tool, so you can try and optimize that as best as possible. All right, moving along. So quick overview, 3D sketches. 3D sketches are meant for the early design phase, you know, to quickly get an idea out and then further be developed. But they don't apply to area metrics. Basic buildings are a little bit more malleable and count, or less malleable, but count towards your area metrics. And then line buildings are single function, basically line of spaces. All right, in the future for getting started, one of the major tools that is missing from Spacemaker was a generative design tool. It's the explore function here. It is still in development, but I'm excited to see it. Hundreds of options can be generated in an instance for us to pick from, and then start to develop in this way. All right, Forma for analysis. So Forma for analysis, first and foremost was area analysis. We were already talking about that. We're going to expand on it a little bit further. As you can see, all the information being calculated immediately out the gate is invaluable. These are things that we would have to analyze some Rhino geometry or some REVIT geometry or SketchUp geometry, chart it all down, and then hopefully somehow using Excel or Power BI, visualize it for our clients to understand that. And that's just one proposal, right? We have the ability to do this for all the proposals at one time and immediately see it and change these. So as I had mentioned before, keep an eye on the total gross square footage. It was at 360,000 square feet for the site. Now that I've added that, it's gone up to 360. Right, and then I get a quick preview of what this is. All right, there's no other functions in that right now. I changed it over residential. It's all residential. Right, and then I deselect, and you can see the breakdown of spaces throughout the site. All right, next is the solar analysis. Solar analysis is what it is. You can run a detailed analysis on any date of the year, and that calculates the cumulative for that day. All right, similarly, we will look at the similarly, we will look at the daylighting challenge. Whoops. Oh no. Sorry. Still getting used to this. All right. So this is the daylighting. Again, this is based off of specific daylighting metrics, and I do believe you have the ability to switch those up. One of the main things I meant to mention is any of the analysis that you've run previously are kept so that you can compare them later down the line. Next is wind analysis. This is the bad boy. Getting a CFD analysis is hard and time consuming and usually very costly. With Forma, it's integrated into the process using real-world data and real-world comfort metrics. You have the ability to view comfort or direction with wind speeds, average wind speeds of that area. Now, once you run one, you do have the ability to have what's known as a rapid analysis. So as you design, you can actually see these metrics. Here, what we're looking at is the detailed analysis, in which, again, you can pick your comfort metrics, whichever one is required, and look at comfort or even direction overlaid with those with wind speed. So again, if we cut on the streamlines and turn up the speed, we will start to see actual streamlines and actual CFD effects of the site itself. Again, this could make or break a design. How many times have you been in a site where wind shears are way too high? There was no real way of determining that. Now we have the ability to do that within, 20 minutes of me starting this presentation. All right, and again, you can change those heights to analyze specific zones or how it is affecting the building in certain areas. So as we can see, our little nook we cut out actually seems to be pretty well protected, even though it's high, pretty high off the ground, right? Even with direct wind, the shape of the building and the surrounding buildings helps to deflect it. So again, these are analyses that would take specialists and specialized software in order to accomplish, and could take days or weeks, and that's only for one option and could cost a lot of money. Next is the microclimate analysis. This is a culmination of all of the analysis ran inside of Autodesk Forma. And once you have all of them ran, you can start to actually get an understanding throughout the year of how that site is performing, utilizing the ideals around comfort, human comfort. All right, and we can see how wind, temperature, time, all affects the microclimate of your site. So a few more minutes. All right, so we got one more analysis type to review, and that is essentially what is Autodesk Insight, which is built on Green Building Studio, and has the capability for us to do operational energy from kind of a rudimentary level at this point. It is still in beta, but the idea is that we can actually set a general construction type, similar to what you could do in REVIT or in Autodesk Forma or Green Building Studio. We can set the wall construction, the roof constructions, and understand possibly how much energy this building might use, or this set of buildings might use. All right, and more to come in the future. Underneath the advanced settings, we can get some of our MEP engineers in here to help us dictate how this building might perform in the near future. All right, and then lastly, once all that's finished, we do have the ability to go over to the side and compare these analyses against each other. So what we're going to do here is we'll just show solar energy, or solar versus the two sunlight hours versus the two concepts. And again, they're married, so you can get a one-to-one direct comparison. All right, so again, these are some of the analyses that we can quickly do inside of Forma. And again, more to come. Autodesk is committed to working with third parties to create more analyses. So more than likely, we'll probably see some of our favorite softwares, analysis softwares, coming to Forma and being integrated into this process. Interoperability, this is the big boy, and we're running in about 15 minutes, so shouldn't take too much longer. All right, so seamless connectivity. All right, Forma is just the start. If you'll notice on the left-hand side of the dash, or the actual Forma dashboard, we have something called extensions. If we click on that, there are already a couple extensions that have already been published, which is the REVIT add-in, which we will cover here in a few minutes. There's a Rhino add-in, which just came out, I believe, last week. I haven't downloaded, haven't tried it yet, but it looks stunning. There is Space Diver. Space Diver is essentially allows for designers to create configurators in Grasshopper, host them to the cloud, and then produce them and manipulate them inside of Spacemaker. Lastly is TestFit. TestFit is actually a software that's similar to Spacemaker for space planning, but for parking as well. It started out as a parking tool. Spacemaker has been implemented, or excuse me, TestFit has been implemented for their parking tool inside of Spacemaker as an add-in. It's in beta for now, but we'll see. Hopefully they bring the space planning tools to Forma. And then at the bottom, as you'll notice, again, Autodesk is looking for developers to help add to and create more connectivity to Forma. So this is just the beginning. All right, quickly we'll go over Revit export. You do have the ability to export out to OBJ. It's not as data rich. It's just an OBJ 3D model. But with Revit, we can actually send that immediately over to from Forma to Revit under the Massing and Site tabs now. And you can choose your options or what you decide to load in. It can be some will be general models. You can elect to make some of the models actual building elements, which we did. And this is slightly sped up, but no more than about 3 minutes. I have a fully editable terrain of the entire site, and I have all the buildings, contextual buildings groups, and then I have all of my proposal buildings grouped as well. So again, I'll zoom out, and we have a full BIM model, site model for use in Revit or any other software with the terrain already populated on it. So if I wanted to, I can go ahead and pop open Inkscape and have a rendering, or send it out to any other software and start designing. Now, there is some funkiness that comes in, but you know, is to be had. So notice that I brought in our basic building as actual building elements or walls with levels, and then notice that our line building is a generic model for us to possibly trace. All right, so again, a model for everyone, especially if you go straight to Revit. The idea is from Revit, I can send that out to Format, I can send that out to Rhino via Data Exchange or Rhino Inside, and I can immediately send that to Twinmotion and start doing renderings. Pretty cool, right? All right, this model is located in the real world also. So it is automatically given when you import into Revit that you are given a GIS coordinate system code. Now, what that means is seamless connectivity to some engineering softwares, mapping softwares such as Autodesk Civil 3D, InfraWorks, Esri, Cesium with Google Maps. We can place this model in Google Maps with that coordinate system, Unreal Engine, Unity, and Omniverse. There's so many possibilities now that we have the ability to have a completely coordinated model. So again, why Forma? Forma, if you remember, that process of feasibility and conceptual design is convoluted, it's hard, it requires way too much effort. Forma is intuitive, it's easy to learn, requiring much less investment on training and onboarding. It's data rich, all right, seamless integrations with industry leading third-party platforms and data sources. Time saving, immediate ROI on project feasibility, early stage of design. All of this is completed by one person in about an hour and not days. And I could keep churning out concept after concept after concept. It's collaborative. We can invite editors, viewers. We can have multiple people working on different proposals within the same project and bringing them all together. It's completely up to you. And then there is the direct interoperability with other leading software. And that's Autodesk Forma. So we have a little bit of time for questions, comments, or any other type of demo you would like to go over.
So we did have a question that came in, and she asked, how accurate are the property lines?
From what I can tell, great question. They are pretty much on point. Most of them are coming from, most property lines are coming from actual municipalities, and all Regrid is doing is bringing those together to put them into Forma effectively. You could also do this with a DXF. You used to be able to bring in shape files from GIS. Hopefully that will be coming back at some point. But again, property lines are open sourced and available to the public because they are public knowledge.
Great. And then one more question I see. Can you review how to add project members?
Project members, sure thing. All right, so I'll just go back. I already have Forma pulled up. This is one of my other models. Adding project members is really easy. So as you can see on the side, we have a little project member thing. Right. And we have the ability to simply add, and we can send an email out. Now, again, we do have the ability to make them an admin, a collaborator, or a viewer. So collaborator would be able to actually work in Forma and actually create proposals. Viewers, as it suggests, can only view. Admins, more than likely, you're not going to invite too many people as an admin. This can also be done at the project dashboard or at the, the company hub, and it's pretty much a similar setup, except you have the entire list of people from your company.
Awesome.
All right.
I believe that's all the time we have for questions, but I am going to pull up a poll real quick. So if you have any more questions or would like to meet with one of our team members for a one-on-one demo, you can answer yes, and we'll get back to you shortly to talk about this exciting program. I'll leave that up just for a minute. All right, perfect. Thank you for that. You can also visit us at our website at symmetry.us to learn more about the products and services we offer, or we can be reached by the phone number on the screen. That will wrap up our webinar today. Big thank you to Jeffrey, and thank you all for taking your time out of the day to join us.
Thank y'all.